Hey guys, Adam here with yet another Donkey Kong repair, and this one comes to us from Whitney over at BrokenToken.com. He actually sent me 3 Donkey Kong PCBs all in a big box here, each one with different symptoms. He's got them labeled here on the side. You can kind of see this one here is tested back in 2013. It's got some audio issues. The one we're looking at right now is this one here, tested in 2013, no boot, blank screen, some random Mario walking sound. So no boot, what does that tell us? It tells us it's a CPU PCB issue. The CPU PCB boots up, there's the CPU, and it's reading from the program ROMs. And once it boots up and gets on its legs, then it starts throwing stuff onto the screen. So if we're not even getting that far, then we know it's an issue with this PCB. But anyway, let's fire it up and see what we see here. So yeah, I can already hear the music coming out of the speaker up here. Just random craziness going on. But what's good is that, the graphics look clean. I can see, the pixels are showing up sharply and everything. Yeah, just lots of issues here with the CPU PCB. So let me go ahead and throw the fluke on here. We'll do some ROM signature checks as a starting point. Make sure the CPU can get access to the ROMs, because that's what the program is, the Donkey Kong program, and also to the RAM. And we'll go from there. Alright, so the ROM checks came back okay, which is good. So I went on and checked the RAM, and I spotted this. So read-write error at address 6841. Those are the bits. There's 8 data bits, so it's giving it to you in hex. There's 4. The upper 4 bits give you a 0. The lower 4 bits give you an F. So it's saying all the lower bits are having issues. If I look at my little cheat sheet here, so basically I said, just do a RAM check from 6000 to 6BFF, and it said 6841 is a problem. So if I look over here, which one is 68? Falls into this range right here, 68,000 to 6BFF. That's 3A and 4A. So these are my notes. What this is telling me is that 3A and 4A, which are these two guys right here, those two guys hold this data, okay? And then I have little notes here. 4C and 3C hold that data, 3B and 4B hold that data. So anyway, these two chips right here are holding that data, okay? Now if I flip it over and I look at those, what is it, 3A and 4A right here, you can see that one of the chips holds 4 of the data bits. This is the data bus here, D0 to D8. And then the other chip holds the other 4 bits. And so this is telling me that, 3A holds the lower bits, 4A holds the upper bits. And the fluke is telling me that your upper bits are fine, your lower bits are screwed up. So this tells me right away that my problem is 3A, which is this guy right here. So what is that? That is a 2114, that's a RAM, and I believe I have a few of those. So let me go ahead and socket this guy, and then we'll put in a fresh RAM and see if that takes care of the RAM issues. Okay, we got our RAM in there replaced. Let's see where we're at now. See, hopefully this thing will boot. Hey, beautiful. Let's see if we got any graphics issues here. No, that looks pretty good. Alright, well, let's coin her up. Let's see here. Very nice. Sounds okay. Analog sounds. Nice. Alright, let's see if we get some controls. Let's see, moving around here. Where am I? There we go. It's hard to do this with one hand. Cool. I think this one is in good shape. Super. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we put this one aside and we'll start looking at one of the other ones here. Because like I said before, we got 3 of them to work on. And so yeah, let's grab the next one. Alrighty, here is number 3. This is the 3rd Donkey Kong PCB. And this one here, it says it was tested in 2013. Some garbage on the screen will not boot. Continual background sound loop. So let's fire this one up. And I don't hear any background looping. But I do see garbage on the screen. So, let's start probing. Well, so I know I have clocks, right? Because I can see data on the screen, and we need clocks to be able to blit all the pixels to the screen. So I do see that, so that's good. So why don't we start, whenever a game doesn't boot, I always start with the Z80. Just make sure that Watch Dog's not barking or there's some other weird things going on. And so I always have my little cheat sheet over here, the Z80 pinout on the wall along with pinouts for EEPROMs and stuff. And so I like to check things like reset, the interrupts, anything else that might be suspect. Most of this control signals over here and over here. And so if we start, I always start with the reset. Reset is 26. So that's 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is high. That's good because reset is active low, which means if it ever goes low, you just keep resetting the game. So we're not seeing that. That's good. And then I like to check the interrupts. And interrupts are basically signals to the CPU to say, hey, whatever you're doing, can you just stop for a second? There's something more important that I need you to take care of. And there's two interrupt signals. There's interrupt 16 and 17, an interrupt and then a non-maskable interrupt. So let's take a look at those, 16 and 17. So if I start at 20, 19, 18, 17. Oh, that is low all the time. How about 16? 16 is high. So we are getting an interrupt. We're getting, looks like a non-maskable interrupt on 17. So something on this PCB is asking it to just keep doing something other than what it should be doing. So we have our schematics here. We take a look at the Z80 CPU, which is right over here. Where is our non-maskable interrupt? There it is right there, 17. So it comes from this flip-flop, which gets a clock, and an input is always low. And then it has two signals, an R and an S. R is for reset. In other words, when we see the signal toggle, it's going to reset the output. It's going to make it go low. And then we have a set input. When that thing toggles, we're going to set it or force it to go high. And so these two guys can influence what happens on the output, as well as, you know, if none of these are being activated, then it should take whatever's on the D and just force it onto the Q. So let's take a look at some of these guys. This is what a reset and set, pin 1 and 4 of 8F. So where's 8F on this guy? 8F is right here. So 1 and 4. 1 is here. He's not doing anything. 2, 3, 4. And he's not doing anything. Okay, that's not good. They should be doing something, because if none of these guys are setting or resetting, then it'll just always be low, right? Because the input is low. So if the clock is just flying by, it's just going to take whatever's on D and force it on the Q. It'll just always make that low, and that's what we're seeing. So let's take a look here. The reset signal is tied to a pull-up resistor, so that means that it's never going to do anything. The set, though, goes down here, and it looks like it feeds into this stuff here. So it looks like the set of that flop is controlled by software, because I can see the address pins here, and I can see some of the control signals that go up into the address decoding logic. And so it looks like the vertical blank, I can see the vertical blank is actually what goes and feeds into triggering this guy to say, hey, I need you to do something for me. So the vertical blank actually starts the interrupt, but then based on the Z80 and running the program, it actually resets the interrupt. And so I'm not seeing that happening. So I think what I should do is probably just take the fluke and start making sure that I can read the contents of the ROMs and do some ROM signature checks. Because if that program is not running properly, then we're never going to clear that interrupt, and we'll just be stuck in the state that we're seeing right now. So let me do that. I will break out the fluke, we'll plug it in there, and we'll do some sig checks. So we found something. So all ROM checks failed, which is highly suspicious, because very rarely is it that I see that all the ROMs are bad. So I did some memory checks, and those were bad too, and it indicated that one of the bits on the data bus was stuck. And so I actually never used this feature before, but if I do a bus test, it tells me that pretty much right off the bat. So that's good to know. I'll have to use that in the future. Data bit 0 is tied high. Do we want it to loop? Sure, let's loop. And so I can verify this by looking at the data bus. So here's the data bus coming out of the Z80 CPU right here. And it goes to all sorts of things, right? It goes to this chip, which drives it to the video PCB. It gets tied to all the ROMs and the RAMs. So it's going to be kind of hard to see what is driving it high all the time. But let's just confirm that it is. So the easiest place for me to sample bit 0 is right here, 6A on pin 9. And I can also check all the other ones, pin 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, etc. So So 6A is where 6A is right here. So if I check pin 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I'm out of frame. You can see that it's high all the time. Let's check its buddy. Aha. So this is bit 1, bit 2, bit 3. They're all toggling. But bit 9, I'm sorry, pin 9, which is bit 0, is stuck high all the time. Sure enough, something is pulling it high. So, could be this guy right here, actually. It could be this 6A that we were just probing, or it could be anything else. I mean, this data bus actually goes over to, what is this, the sound CPU, I think? Or is this the DMA address controller? I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look at that. But it also goes up and connects to all of these other guys, right? When you're coining up your games, when you're moving the joysticks and all that other kind of stuff, that feeds in from the top here, and the CPU samples that through these buffers. So it could be any one of these buffers. It could be something on a ROM chip. Who knows? And so I think what I'll do is probably start with all the socketed chips that connect to the D bus, the data bus. Start removing all of these ROMs, and then remove what I can. I don't think I can remove that guy. But I'll start by removing whatever I can that's socketed and attached to that data bus. Hopefully, that'll go away, and I can just figure out exactly what chip it is. If not, then I may have to physically unsolder and remove one little chip at a time, whatever's connected to that data bus, until I find the culprit. So this may be tedious, but we may get lucky. So let me get started. Well, I pulled the ROMs, and that didn't work. I think the next thing I'm going to do is actually take a look at these over here. So these are the buffers for your inputs like coin and joystick buttons, and they're looking kind of crusty. In fact, somebody tried to get the rust off by scrubbing them down. But this whole area, you can kind of see there's some etching in the PCB, and so I think I might actually start with these guys, seeing as they kind of look in rough shape and compared to some of the other ICs. So I'll start with these, and then we'll go from there. Well, I went ahead and pulled those two, and it's still showing the same problem. Actually, I pulled a third one here. I haven't cleaned the holes out, but I was just kind of curious to see if it took care of the issue. Then D0 is still being pulled high. So, in hindsight, I probably could have just snipped the pins. I was thinking about this. Probably a faster way to go is to just find the D0 pin on each one of these chips and just snip it. And then that way I wouldn't have to pull the chips. But these were kind of crusty, and so I was planning on replacing those anyway. But anyway, this D0 line goes through all the RAM and everything, and so rather than have to pull out every single RAM chip, I can just clip the D0 pin and just keep monitoring, D0 at the CPU. And whenever it, right now it's forced high, once it goes lower, it goes tri-state, which means it's kind of floating between 0 and 1. Then I know I found my culprit, and then I can just take the ones that were fine and just solder them back on and keep them all in place. So I'll probably do that. I'm going to take a look at the schematic and figure out which ones I want to tackle next. Probably these, which are up in this area, up in here. Snip a couple of those, and then if that doesn't do the trick, I'll have to start going down these RAMs and start snipping those as well, figure out where it's coming from. Ta-da! So it was the third chip that I pulled. I pulled these two up here and cleaned the holes out and everything. And then this one here was the next guy I pulled. I still have to clean out the holes, but sure enough, that was our culprit. So I can go ahead and do my RAM and ROM tests now. I always keep a little cheat sheet in the back of my schematics that let me know the address mapping for the RAM and the ROM. And so I'm going to go through that, do RAM checks and ROM checks, and then we'll go from there. Well, we're not there yet. I thought we had it, but you can see it's still stuck here. You probably can't hear the sound, but it's doing the what is it, jumping sound over and over and over again, or the walking sound. I forget which one. And you can see that data line 0 is still pulled high. So I guess we're going to have to keep going here. I'll probably snip a few legs and some of the other chips that are on D0, and hopefully we can find this guy. We got it. You can see that the line dropped much lower. But as expected, well, I guess not as expected, but as I feared, it was the very last one that I cut. Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? The last one you're going to cut, you're not going to cut it anymore, but it was the last one that I had planned to cut. It was the last one on the entire schematic that was hooked up to D0, so all of these RAM were hooked up to D0. And then there's a couple of stuff here that I believe has to do with the sound, and it was this guy right here. Which is it? This guy right here. And so I went ahead and trimmed it. Let me see if I can hit it with the probe so you can kind of see. So here is the leg in question, and you can see that it's high, and this is what's now on the board. It's tri-stated. There's nothing going on there. That's what I want to see. So I have to fix now all the mess that I did with all these rams and the pins that I had snipped and everything. And then I can just replace this guy here. And which other one did I do? I think I did this one here. I'm sorry, these two. So I gotta fix the leg on this one, replace this guy, fix the legs on the ram, and then we'll be all set. Wow, that is piping hot. Woo, wow. Damn. Yeah, so there's definitely something going on with that one. Wow. So yeah. Alright, let me clean up this mess and then we'll see where we're at. Alright, so we placed these two guys, put some sockets down there, and then I connected these pins back up, which actually wasn't too bad at all. I just bent the pin in place, hit it with some solder, bam. All set to go. So, let's fire this one up. Oh, I heard the sound, so that's a good sign. Blank screen. Alrighty. Oh, okay, so if you notice here, first of all, we're missing green, obviously, we'll get to that later, but there's no characters, alright? I see sprites, I see tiles, I see no characters, and I believe on the initial screen, not this screen, but when you fire it up, it has the high score table, which is all characters, and so that's why we were seeing just a blank screen. Again, I'm not seeing the Nintendo 1981 or whatever the copyright is. So this is this high score screen. We're not seeing anything. And then it should go back to the attract mode. There it is. So actually, this is not bad. This is good news. So for some reason, we are not able to write to the character, or maybe, I don't know, I guess we'll have to see. It could be that we're writing to the character logic on the video PCB and it's not making its way to the monitor, or we're not able to write it to it in general. Actually, I take that back. I did do RAM checks with the Fluke on all of the graphics RAM, and it all came back okay. So I know that I can write to the sprites and the tiles and the character RAM and all that good stuff. So that is actually very good. So it's on the read side. So let me flip this schematic over and see if we can figure this out. So this is all sprite stuff down here, and then these are your sprite ROMs. And then the character ROMs are these two guys right here. And so they get their cues, I believe, from this memory. And so the CPU will fill up this memory with, hey, this is what I want you to send to the screen, you know, high score, HIGH, SCORE, all that kind of garbage. And then that gets sent to the ROMs. It picks up the proper pixels, right, for each one of your characters, and then sends them off to this MUX. It gets sent out to the screen. Could be that this MUX is just stuck, right? Maybe it's only ever sending sprite information. It's not switching between sprite and character information. Could be that. Could be, what else could be, I guess? I don't think these ROMs have an enable. So it could be the fact that, well, so the data from the ROM comes down into these little serializers, which dices up the pixels and sends them out to the screen. Maybe this is not working properly. Who knows? So I think I'm going to start with, actually, I'll start with this guy. And then if it's not him, then I'll work my way back and start looking at some of this stuff. But I am very optimistic. I think we're pretty close here. So let me flip over this PCB. We'll start get to the video side, and then we can go from there. So here's the video side. So I started looking at the MUX. That's looking good. Looked at some of this other stuff here. That's looking good. And then I just happened to stumble on this. Can anybody see what's wrong with this picture? Here's the top identification notch, and there it is over here. And I believe, what is this? This is a little prom in 2N. Can we find that on our schematic here? Where are you? Let me see. 2N. Right there. He is a color prom. So he is the color prom for the characters. So if he is just sending out, if you stick him in backwards and he just sends out zeros, then you're sending nothing to the screen all the time. And so why don't we flip this guy over? Hopefully it's not damaged, and then I wouldn't be surprised if we get some color, some characters back. Yep, that was it. So now we have characters. Let's see how our sprites look. Alright, so we got some characters here. The color looks a little bit off. Mario looks a little bit funny there. Donkey Kong looks off. And then we've got this business up here. And so I think that's probably a color issue. I mean, position's fine. The sprites look like they're supposed to look. Got some weirdness going on there. So I think it's a color issue. So let's take a look at the schematics and see where we're at. So the way Donkey Kong works is we got a bunch of information that gets stored in this RAM. And it's kind of like a little packet. You've got little bits of information. You've got the location of the character, what its color is going to be, or what I should say, where in the color palette its color entries are going to come from, and then the character itself, like Donkey Kong or Mario or whatever. That stuff kind of moves along in this direction, and it gets split up into several pieces. The location gets used around here. We're doing some math here to figure out whether or not we need to draw him. The actual character himself, whether it's Donkey Kong or Mario or whatever, that information goes and becomes addressing into the ROMs here, so we can send out the pixels that are going to draw those characters. The color, let's see, the color starts here, works its way up, and ends up here. So hold on a second, there's our color. Once the characters get, or the sprites rather, get turned into pixels, those pixels march through and then they join the color, okay? So it's almost, you can think of it like, you know, I have 4 colors to choose from, I don't know, red, white, black, and blue. That information comes up here, and then we say, okay, well, what bank do you want me to use, okay? So you get the bank, color bank information, and then the actual color information here. Those get coupled, and they go through some ECL, which is, I don't know why they do this, but they do. This is memory that runs off of, instead of 0 and 5 volts, you know, like TTL, it runs from -5 to +5 volts. It's crazy. But they convert it, they use ECL RAM, they convert it back to TTL, and then it ends up going all the way over here like we saw earlier, and it gets sent over to the screen. So here's our color. So we should check this area here before it enters this RAM, and then check it again on its way out and see if maybe it gets screwed up before it even enters the RAM, or maybe it goes through just fine and then on its way out it gets screwed up. So let me poke around a little bit with the probe, and we'll see which end seems hairy. So I poked around and I saw some weirdness right over here in this area. And so if we follow this back just for a second, these are our 4 color bits, and they become DC5, 4, 3, and 2. And then they work their way through the RAM, and they come out as DA5, 4, 3, and 2. I looked on the inputs and the outputs, and I'm seeing something weird with DA3. So he comes in as 18, and he goes out as 19. And so if I take a look at that chip, which is right here, coming in as 18, he's wiggling. That's good. That means he went through the RAM successfully, and he's changing values. And then if I look at 19, it's stuck low. Now if I look at some of the others, this is an input, actually that's a chip, that's a line that's not being used. If I look at this one here, he's coming in and he's toggling, he's going out and he's toggling, but this one here, he's coming in and toggling, boom, he's stuck. So this guy here, I suspect has got some problems. So this is what, a 373, let's see if I have one of those, and get our colors back. Well, we're not there yet. We're still seeing some color issues. So I went ahead and replaced that part. But what I found is that something else on the line is driving it low. You can see here, just as an experiment, thankfully now that I have a socket, I can pull that pin out. And here's the input. It's toggling. Here's the output. Also toggling. Now I can't stick this in the socket to see what the line is, but I can see that there's a trace right here that goes from that pin to this pin. And you can see it's tied low all the time. So something else on this line is driving it low. What does it feed? It's DA2, and it goes back to here, and then it also goes all the way over to here, which drives the screen. So one of these two is causing the problem. So just like I did before, I'll probably snip a leg, take some measurements with my little probe here, and then figure out which one of these guys need to be replaced. But luckily I think there's only 2 other chips on this line, so we got a 50-50 chance of getting it right the first time. Boom, first try. So it was actually this guy right here next to it. You can see I snipped a leg, and so if I sample what is going on the pin, not the pin, I'm sorry, what's on the trace that's on the board, you can see it's toggling, and then this input pin is forcing it low. That should never happen. So this, I believe, is like a 137, LS137. I got a bunch of those. So I think we are 1 chip away from getting our colors back. So let me pull this guy. Alright, so things are looking better. We got our weirdness up there gone. The colors are looking good for Donkey Kong and Mario. Sweet. Alright, let's fire it up. Let's see how she sounds. My little trick here. Let's coin it up. Alright, and then... which one is it? This one here? Here we go. Sounding good here. Hopefully you can hear that. Uh-oh. We're missing his little pound sound. Let's see if we get the other analog sounds. I can hurry up and move. Yeah, okay, so we got that. How about jump? Ah, so we're just missing that pound sound. I believe that is one of these analog sounds. So the way this works is that the CPU drives these signals down here and it gives cues like, hey, I want you to play the walking sound, or I want you to play the pound sound, or what is the other one? The jump sound. And then this analog circuitry kicks in and makes the sound. And it all gets muxed in and then driven to the speaker, to the audio amp. So the question is, which one of these does what? And I'm not really that familiar with the analog circuitry. Let me turn this off so I can hear myself talk here. I'm not really sure what does what. I see that there's a 556 timer here, and so I believe that does the jump sound, because it's kind of this is an oscillator. It's actually two oscillators, and the way it sounds when he jumps is ooh, you know, it's a little oscillating sound. So I'm guessing that's the oscillator. I'm sorry, that makes the jump sound. One of these does the stomping sound, and one of these does the little squeaky walking sound. Now they get cued by these drivers here. You can see these little triangles. These are drivers. And so what I think I can do is kind of manually force these guys on, and then we can hear what does what. So this is what? This is 6L, pin 9, pin 13, and pin 11. So let me fire this back up so we can hear. And so if I take my wire here and I kind of hack into this, what did we say? Pin 9, pin 9, 13, 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, you hear that? Alright, so that's the walking one. So that means that this section here, I'm not even in frame, this section here, this is for the walking sound. Let's try this one here, 11. So grab this wire. 8, 9, 10, 11. Ooh, I'm not hearing anything. Alright, let's make a note of that. 11 drives this little section here. And then what was the last one? This one up here. Ah, pin 9. Did we already do 9? We already did 9. What am I thinking? Ah, 13. Pin 13 should fire up that. So pin 13, if I had to guess, I would say would be his jumping sound. Ah, hear that? So that's what that is. So that means the problem is this little piece of circuitry here. And so I probably will have to fire up the scope, because a logic probe is not going to tell me anything about what's going on here. This is all analog. So I'm going to hook up the scope, and then I'll just start picking some of these points as I strobe this to make sure these things are switching properly, and see if things are actually moving here. Maybe we've got a bad transistor, who knows. So let me get set up for that, and then we'll be right back. So I took a peek at the front end of this circuitry. This actually seems to be working fine, and I think what happens is when this turns on, it lets this signal pass through. And this signal comes all the way from this guy here, which is just a counter. But the clock from this is actually derived from a bunch of other counters. And so normally you'd see, you know, a counter would just be like a square wave, would just be a very rhythmic signal that bounces up and down, up and down. These counters are generating a very weird looking clock. And when you run that through and then send it to the output, you get that that kind of, you know, stomping sound. And so this whole section here generates that weird clock, and then this counter uses that to go ahead and send that signal over to the amplifier over here. If I look at the output, pin 12 of this guy, which is 3J, it looks to me like it's floating. So here's 3J. Now here's what we expect the probe to do. It's either going to be, you know, a 1, and you can see that the light gets brighter, or it's a 0, and it goes away, or it's toggling. You know, it's doing that kind of thing. If it doesn't change at all, if it stays this same constant value, then the pin's floating, which means it's not really hooked up to anything. So it's pin 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you can see right there, it's not really doing anything. Every once in a while you get a little flicker, but that's it. And so I think that internally this output is busted. And so this is a 161, which I have plenty of. So let me pull this guy out and see if we get our stomp sound back. Okay, so we got our new 161 in there. Before we start this, let's just make sure that we actually have some sound. Hopefully this did the trick. Should be 8, 9, 10, 11. Ah. Very good. Alright. Let's fire it up. And should be this one here. Very good. We already saw that the motion and everything was fine, and the other analog sounds too, but we'll just confirm here. So move my little guy. Very good. Where's my jump? Where's my jump? There he is. Cool. A lot of little problems with this one, but I think we have it nailed down, and I think this makes 3. So just to kind of recap, we got all these boards here from BrokenToken, I believe. This one was, let's see, this is the first one we tackled, garbage on screen, won't boot. I think that one had a bad RAM issue. This one here, this one I actually didn't record in this video, but I did it in a separate video. This one had some sound CPU issues, and the legs were all busted off. And so if you follow the link here, you'll go to the video where I restored that one, and that brought this guy back to life. And then finally, around this one here, where it didn't boot, it had just a blank screen, some random sounds. And so, yeah, 3 out of 3. That's the way we like to do it here. So I think it's going to do it for me, guys. Hopefully this was entertaining for you. And you probably won't see a video from me for a while. I'm heading actually to South America. When is it? Tomorrow? No, Sunday. I'm actually recording this on Friday, late Friday. And so that'll be it for me for a while. I'll be gone for a few weeks working at an orphanage down in South America. You can click this monitor if you want more info on that. And if you guys want to support me, then that'd be awesome. Other than that, I guess that's going to do it, guys. So God bless. Thanks for all your support, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys, and hey, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and check out some of my other videos on Arcade Game Repair. Oh, seriously?